Hi. So by now, I think everybody has at least heard of Project 2025. I know it sort of penetrated a little bit into the media ecosystem back during the campaigns. Democrats talked about it during the DNC, and then sort of abandoned it. Now that Trump has been president for a little under a week, and it's become clear that the Trump agenda and the Project 2025 agenda are pretty much one and the same. I wanted to kind of revisit it. First of all, what Project 2025 is, the Heritage Foundation, which is this big right wing think tank, it's been around forever. Um, they have these initiatives every year where they, get together and talk about basically ways to be evil and make money and whatever, to help their benefactors, their wealthy benefactors. And every year they create a document, and it's kind of called Project whatever the year. So Project 2025 heading into this year is known, it's called that, but it's really about a book that they made called Mandate for Leadership, which is 900 some odd pages long. And it goes into all the sort of minutiae about ideas they have for pretty much anything that they want to try to do. And there's been a lot of newspaper articles of late circulating about, hey, wow, these Trump executive orders are very similar to what was in Project 2025's Mandate for Leadership. I have, I wrote this book, which you can see there, Rough Beast, which came out in May of 2024. I talk about Project 2025 in chapter 7, which is called Dictatorship for Dummies. The prime mover of the Heritage Foundation is a guy named Kevin Roberts. Interesting guy, radical Catholic, kind of along the Leonard Leo lines. The New York Times called him, because he ran a school in Wyoming, they called him the Cowboy Catholic. And he sort of was the shepherd and organized the creation of this book. And he wrote the foreword to it. So he's kind of an important person. And what his vision is, I think, is kind of what the collective vision is in a lot of ways. So given that now we're at the point where, Trump is going to do these things, or his administration is going to do them. Trump is not going to do anything but golf and insult people, I think. We can safely say nap, watch TV. I wanted to talk about basically what we can expect from Project 2025. And I just want to read part of the book about that, because this is now taking stuff from the foreword written by Kevin Roberts, the Cowboy Catholic, so-called, by the New York Times. And I just wanted to read what we can expect, because I think now we can expect it, and we have to know what's coming or what might be coming so that we can plan accordingly. Okay. The foreword to Mandate for Leadership is a revealing document. What does the nation's future look like to Kevin Roberts? What are the planks in the Cowboy Catholic's Counter-Reformation? Here are 10 takeaways, all of them ominous. 1. Straight married families with children will enjoy favored status. Front and center is the focus on family, and not just any family, man and wife joined in holy matrimony, and the children born in wedlock to said couple. Other family dynamics are scapegoated and scorned. Roberts also sets up a Reaganite argument that government is, 1, inherently bad, and 2, something other than we the people organized for good governance. To Roberts, community is the people. Government is just a bunch of faceless, power-mad bureaucrats. This excerpt gives some insight into his thinking. I'm going to do a terrible North Atlantic accent so you know that it's Kevin Roberts and not me and not my voice. So here we go. The next conservative president must get to work pursuing the true priority of politics, the well-being of the American family. In many ways, the entire point of centralizing political power is to subvert the family. Its purpose is to replace people's natural loves and loyalties with unnatural ones. You see this in the popular left-wing aphorism, government is simply the name we give to the things we choose to do together. But in real life, most of the things people do together have nothing to do with government. These are the mediating institutions that serve as the building blocks of any healthy society. Marriage, family, work, church, school, volunteering. The name real people give to the things we do together is community, not government. Our lives are full of interwoven, overlapping communities, and our individual and collective happiness depends upon them. But the most important community in each of our lives, and the life of the nation, is the family. Now, not that traditional families aren't important. I'm the product of one. I'm a member of one right now. I just don't think they should be treated like the Brahmins in the American caste system, the paradigm for all that is right and good. 2, gay, lesbian, and non-binary individuals will be stripped of their civil rights. We're already starting to see this with the DEI stuff and the rollbacks in the executive orders. So, opposed to the idea of helping the LGBTQ community on theological grounds, Roberts proposes that we simply not acknowledge the existence of what he calls, I think derisively, SOGI, which is SOGI. So, again, Roberts' voice. The next conservative president must take the institutions of American civil society hard targets for woke culture warriors. This starts with deleting the terms sexual orientation and gender identity, SOGI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, gender equality, gender equity, gender awareness, gender sensitive, abortion, reproductive health, reproductive rights, and any other term used to deprive Americans of their First Amendment rights out of every federal rule, agency regulation, contract, grant, regulation, and piece of legislation that exists. Never mind that he wants to, not allow people to say certain words and then mentions the First Amendment, right? But he wants to take it out of all legislation. So every federal rule, every piece of legislation, that means the end of marriage equality, the end of transitioning, the end of LGBTQ as a protected class under federal law, protected, that is, from discrimination based on SOGI. Kevin really doesn't want gays to get that wedding cake. Or access to the ER when their partner's dying, and other rights straight married couples take for granted. 3, pornography will be outlawed. Roberts hates porn more than he hates treason. Pornography, ... is not a political Gordian knot inextricably binding up disparate claims about free speech, property rights, sexual liberation, and child welfare. It has no claim to First Amendment protection. Its purveyors are child predators and misogynistic exploiters of women. Their product is as addictive as any illicit drug and as psychologically destructive as any crime. Pornography should be outlawed. The people who produce and distribute it should be imprisoned. Educators and public librarians who purvey it should be classed as registered sex offenders. And telecommunications and technology firms that facilitate its spread should be shuttered. Now, while it's certainly true that some adult online content is created by child predators and sex traffickers, not all of it is, not by a long shot. Why does Roberts, presumably a big believer in entrepreneurship, want to shutter an entire industry that generates $14 billion in domestic revenue annually? Did he have a bad experience on OnlyFans? Because even if the US were to criminalize adult content in the draconian way Roberts suggests, it's not like porn would stop being made or consumed. I guess he's cool with offshoring one of America's booming industries to China. Furthermore, why should sex workers be capriciously deprived of their right to free speech? As it is now, neo-Nazis have an easier time publishing online their manifestos of hate than writers of erotica do their harmless smut. And don't bring up the Bible, Kevin. Jesus had one notable female friend, Mary Magdalene. We all know what she did for a living. 4, trans individuals will be targeted for eradication. Judge Potter Stewart famously said that he couldn't define porn, but he knew it when he saw it. Roberts has a very specific and dangerously wrong definition of pornography. The ellipses in the previous quoted section, when I went ... is this dependent clause in which Roberts elaborates on what he thinks porn is. Pornography, manifested today in the omnipresent propagation of transgender ideology and sexualization of children, for instance. Okay, putting aside for a minute the implication, which I hope is unintended, that Roberts considers trans ideology and sexualized children erotic, for what is pornography if not commercialized erotic desire? He is, by expressly connecting these things to pornography, suggesting that trans people are all sex objects, inherently X-rated, and therefore not suitable for public view. This is both untrue and harmful to that highly vulnerable population. Literally, the first recommendation in the Project 2025 book is that we restore the family as the centerpiece of American life and protect our children. Why does Roberts not want to protect Trans children. Oh, right, he already told us. He prefers to believe that they don't exist. But here's the reality. God may not exist. Jesus may not exist. But trans kids absolutely do. 5. Blastocysts, zygotes, and embryos have more rights than women. If you're going to take one paragraph away from Mandate for Leadership, this is the one. Finally, conservatives should gratefully celebrate the greatest pro-family win in a generation, overturning Roe v. Wade, a decision that for 5 decades made a mockery of our Constitution and facilitated the deaths of tens of millions of unborn children. But the Dobbs decision is just the beginning. Conservatives in the states and in Washington, including in the next conservative administration, should push as hard as possible to protect the unborn in every jurisdiction in America. In particular, the next conservative president should work with Congress to enact the most robust protections for the unborn that Congress will support, while deploying existing federal powers to protect innocent life and vigorously complying with statutory bans on the federal funding of abortion. Now, I say in the book, copy-paste it, tell all your friends. It's too late for that. Trump and Vance were at a pro-life rally, I think on Tuesday, right? So this is where they're going. Anyway, as discussed previously in Rough Beast, the cowboy Catholic and his Leonard Leo-backed extremists want to ban abortion at the federal level. They've stated this unequivocally time and again. Trump is their vehicle for doing so. And once abortion is outlawed, they'll come for contraception because these religious zealots harbor the erroneous belief that sex is for procreation only, not pleasure, and therefore semen denied access to the fallopian tubes by a latex sheath is no different than dilation and evacuation. These people are very confused. 6, women can and should die in childbirth. Again, this is stuff I'm getting from the Project 2025 foreword as written by Kevin Roberts. Okay, this is for my money the most ominous sentence in the entire foreword. Conservatives should ardently pursue these pro-life and pro-family policies while recognizing the many women who find themselves in immensely difficult, often tragic situations, and the heroism of every choice to become a mother. Recognizing the many women who find themselves in immensely difficult and often tragic situations is not the same thing as protecting the lives of the many women who find themselves in immensely difficult and often tragic situations. It's clear that Roberts' crew is going to eschew the latter to protect the unviable blastocysts they're pleased to call the unborn. And what's this hokum about heroism? It sounds like a play on Horace. Dulce et decorum est pro nondum nato mori. It is sweet and proper to die for the unborn. It's absolutely terrifying. 7, forced birth babies or babies born to dead mothers should be given to the state. Alternative options to abortion, Roberts writes, especially adoption, should receive federal and state support. Given the fact that many, many more women will be dying in childbirth in a reign of Donald I, it's hard not to read this as an encouragement for the MAGA state to collect these babies and send them to good Christian hetero homes. 8, the administrative state should be dismantled. The idea of taking a wrecking ball to the federal government to dismantle the institutions that safeguard the air that we breathe, the water that we drink, that oversee our education system, that protect the LGBTQ community and other minority groups from discrimination, that keep our border secure, is a Stephen K. Bannon hobby horse and also a major theme of that NRX Bible, the Unabomber Manifesto. So Steve Bannon and Ted Kaczynski are both 1, assholes, 2, criminals, 3, lunatics, and 4, nihilists. We should not listen to them. If he had his druthers, Roberts would cripple, if not do away with entirely, the EPA, the Department of Education, the DOJ, the Pentagon, the State Department, and Homeland Security. At least these are the agencies he singles out as being corrupt beyond measure. Again, here's him. And despite its gaudy price tag, the federal budget is not even close to the worst example of this corruption. That distinction belongs to the administrative state, the dismantling of which must be a top priority for the next conservative president. The term administrative state refers to the policymaking work done by the bureaucracies of all the federal government's departments, agencies, and millions of employees. Those millions of employees would be suddenly out of work. This is something Roberts has considered and dismissed with a shrug. To paraphrase the genocidal papal legate Arnold Amalric, fire them all, let God sort them out. As he told the New York Times, again, quote, people will lose their jobs. Hopefully their lives are able to flourish in spite of that. Buildings will be shut down. Hopefully they can be repurposed for private industry. But the administrative state, most importantly, what we're trying to destroy is the political influence it has over individual American sovereignty. And the only way to do that, or one of the ways to do that, is to diminish the number of unelected bureaucrats who are wielding that power instead of Congress. They may also be coming for unemployment insurance. I didn't read that far into the book. 9, wanting to ensure that the planet can sustain human life after 2050 is extremism. Now, at this point, the only scientists who don't think global warming, climate change is real are sellouts and kooks funded by the fossil fuel industry. Climate protesters are gluing their hands to tarmacs and tennis courts. Kids are throwing soup at Van Goghs. It's a genuine crisis, and it's so big and scary that it's frankly impossible for me to wrap my head around fully. If I lack the mental resources to process it, chances are the family at the football game in Waco, Texas, and this is something he alludes to earlier, that's the family that should figure everything out, is similarly hindered, which doesn't make what's happening any less real or any less dangerous. Roberts doesn't see it that way. Cheap Grace aptly describes the left's love affair with environmental extremism. Those who suffer most from the policies of environmentalism would have us enact are the aged, poor, and vulnerable. It is not a political cause, but a pseudo-religion meant to baptize liberals' ruthless pursuit of absolute power in the holy water of environmental virtue. At its very heart, environmental extremism is decidedly anti-human. What? Stewardship and conservation are supplanted by population control and economic regression. Environmental ideologies would ban all fuels that run almost all of the world's cars, planes, factories, farms, and electricity grids. Abandoning confidence in human resilience and creativity and responding to the challenges of the future would raise impediments to the most meaningful human activities. They would stand human affairs in their head, regarding human activity itself as fundamentally a threat to be sacrificed to the God of nature. I don't even know what the fuck that means. I don't know what he's talking about. As Roan Tempest points out, Roan wrote this great profile of Roberts in Wyophile. The cowboy Catholic is fond of the expression, knows what time it is, which he uses as a compliment. So it's somewhat ironic that the climate clock is ticking and Kevin has no idea how late the hour is. 10, everyone should have the right to discriminate against anyone or anything because free speech. Roberts shows his true colors here. Ultimately, the left does not believe that all men are created equal. They think they are special. They certainly don't think all people have an unalienable right to pursue the good life. They think only they themselves have such a right, along with a moral responsibility to make decisions for everyone else. They don't think any citizen, state, business, church, or charity should be allowed any freedom until they first bend the knee. So what he's really saying there is that the government has no right to impose civil rights protections on the people. That's what he means by bend the knee. And again, Trump already did this. This already has the first executive order on day one going after this. So, what Roberts is basically saying is Christian schools should be allowed to be whites only. And golf courses should be allowed to not allow membership to Jews. And bakeries and website designers should not be allowed to accept jobs from gays, or should be allowed to not accept jobs from gays. How dare the federal government try to tell us God-fearing white Christians what to do? Pandering to his audience, Roberts begins his piece with a hagiographical ode to Ronald Reagan. Ugh. But even this is misleading. First of all, if Reagan, famous Cold Warrior, suddenly returned to life today, he would read the answer to the question of whether it is in the interest of the United States to help Ukraine beat Russia that Roberts gave the New York Times. Here again, I'm quoting. Yes, comma, if we do so in a way that is responsible with the people's money, that articulates what the end game is, that is solely focused on military aid, and frankly also recognizes that the United States of America and both Democrat and Republican administrations had a role in creating this conflict. Now, Putin and Russia deserve the blame. I've been very clear about that. Having said that, it was our sable rattling about Ukraine entering NATO that is one of the many factors that led to this. And so, yes, it's on the doorstep of a democratic Europe. We want the Ukrainians to win, but it will also be really helpful if the Germans and the French in particular would do more to support their neighbor. So anyway, Reagan came back from the dead right now. He would read that and find the nearest blunt object to metaphorically beat Kevin Roberts over the head with. In that response, Roberts is parroting well-known Kremlin talking points and ceding the role of democracy's guardian globally. democracy's global guardian to France. France? For shame. More importantly, Roberts includes this quote from Reagan's first inaugural address as governor of California, delivered on January 5th, 1967. Freedom is a fragile thing, and it's never more than one generation away from extinction. It's not ours by way of inheritance. It must be fought for and defended constantly by each generation. What Roberts doesn't provide is the context. In that part of the speech, Ronald Reagan was talking about the peaceful transition of power from one governor to the next, the orderly transfer of administrative authority by direction of the people, as he put it on that sunshiny day. Quote, and this is the simple magic of the commonplace routine, which makes it a near miracle to many of the world's inhabitants. This continuing fact that the people, by democratic process, can delegate power and yet retain the custody of it, end quote. In other words, Kevin Roberts has quoted Ronald Reagan celebrating the peaceful transfer of power in a book designed for an incoming administration of Donald Trump, an open insurrectionist. The only president we've ever had who refused to heed that simple magic and vouchsafe the orderly transfer of administrative authority. Is Roberts intending to be ironical here? Is he trolling us? Here is the full quote, which Roberts abridges, perhaps because he doesn't want his readers contemplating the last line. Perhaps you and I have lived too long with this miracle to properly be appreciative. Freedom is a fragile thing, and it's never more than one generation away from extinction. It is not ours by way of inheritance. It must be fought for and defended constantly by each generation, for it comes only once to a people. And those in world history who have known freedom and then lost it have never known it again. I've never agreed more with anything Ronald Reagan said. So we've managed to preserve our liberty for now. And I said, but if Trump wins, but Trump has won. So, this is what might happen. Freedom is a fragile thing. And fragile things are easy to break.